what is up? We are back with season 2 of the podcast, Spiritual Roundtable, with myself, Child of Balance, and Miss Keys of Wisdom 369. And it's about to get turned up a couple notches this season. Buckle up. We're back to what we do best: devil's advocate, expansive thinking, highlighting triggers and laughter, and so much more. Join us as we embark on a journey of unlocking spiritual potential. As always, we promise to give you what you need and only sometimes what you want. Let's get going, B. All right, so what's up, guys? So before we get started, I did want to let everybody know who does follow us, who either on TikTok or follows the podcast, that we are doing a month-long coupon. And we just wanted to really do it for the Divine Feminine. Both moms, both the Divine Feminine in you. Mother wounds, for whatever reason, is huge in the collective when it comes to shadow work and self-healing, mother wounds, parental wounds. So we just wanted to kind of give a whole month to not only honor, but kind of showcase it. So we're doing $10 off. You can check the website and our social media for all the details. But we have that going on for the entire month of May. So May 1st through the 31st. And we also have a new service that just dropped. So go check that out. You'll be pleasantly surprised. So before we get rolling, this podcast is going to be a little different, but I'm actually kind of really excited about it. I love story time. Story time is my favorite. I love listening to people's stories, even just family members like my grandparents. I could have bathed in all their stories. Loved it. And I liked the idea of asking a question, like posing just a general question. And then usually a lot of people answer those questions through either storytelling or you just get to feel like you know the person a little bit better. And I really wanted to do that on this podcast. A little bit of story time, a little bit of Q&A, kind of interwoven. So that's going to be the deal today. So me and Miss Keys, as always, are going to have a baby heart-to-heart, but it's really just going to be a Q&A with some stories mixed in. And I just feel like that's just going to be fun. So if you are curious about the questions and curious about the answers, stick around. The next 2 weeks of podcasts, this one and the following, are going to be your bread and butter. So I'm going to kick it off with an easy question for Ms. Keys. So what's your favorite way to deal with chaos?
You know, I want to start somewhere before I actually answer that. I always had, I think, like the common, definition or meaning of chaos, right? Like that
Oh, yeah.
unstructured craziness, like this, and this, right? Until I realized, because you know me and my words, when I went and looked up the etymology of chaos. And chaos is actually ties back to the void, right? And sometimes I think I realized for myself that when I couldn't control something, that's when it felt like chaos. But the thing was that I didn't need to control it because it wasn't always mine to control. It was just my way of trying to give, like you always say, chaos being that unstructured energy, the need to give it structure. But when it's not yours, you don't have to give it structure. It just doesn't need your attention. And I think that was it. I thought anything that came in my awareness needed my attention. Anything. And I think that's the biggest problem for me, was anything that came in my awareness needed my attention. And then I needed to fix it. And then I needed to, simmer it down and not just give it structure, but try to turn the chaos into peace, right? So I made chaos like my little bitch to tame, right? Even though most of these things had nothing to do with me. Not my circus, not my monkeys, not my this, but I attached to it the second I started focusing on it, when all it needed was an awareness that it wasn't mine. So I think now where I sit, just because you can pick up on it doesn't mean it's yours. And it doesn't mean you need to do anything. I think that's it for most people. But for me, that was my cracking, breaking apart point. I don't always have to do something because it's in my awareness. And sometimes because I don't need to control things anymore, because you don't need to control things when you're just being. When you're just being, you don't need to control things. You need to control things when you're trying to figure out what comes next or you're stuck on what's behind you. But when you don't need to control it, all these other possibilities open up. And sometimes it feels like chaos. Sometimes it feels unfamiliar. Sometimes it feels overwhelming. Sometimes it feels like too much. And it's not even yours to have to deal with. So I think learning how to not have to insert myself in everything that wasn't mine is kind of how I deal with chaos now. I can just let it be. If it doesn't directly affect me, I don't need to participate. And it doesn't need my attention.
I think that's really funny how you brought up control, because I just want to say that I literally saw a meme today, like this morning at 7 o'clock, randomly on like my FYP, and it was about control, and it said, "It's funny how everybody who craves control never owns a cat because they're so independent." It was literally like hashtag damaged dog people, and I died.
Dog.
I died so hard. I was like, "Oh my god!" But I can see that though. Like I can see that, like especially with cats. A lot of cats, I should say majority, not all, but a lot of cats are very independent by nature.
Yes.
Like,
Like, I love that you brought that up because I don't think enough people realize this either. But when it comes to control, so many people think that they need coping skills, and coping is just for surviving. It's for trying to survive and function within things that you're not even meant to entertain. Coping, literally, cope. The etymology of cope is blow, dude. Did you know that? Like, I didn't know that until I looked that up. But no, like, I want you to think about this. So, cope, like, the etymology of cope is blow. Now, hold on. The synonym for cope, right, is to fend. That comes from defend. So, your coping skills are skills to defend or fend off the anticipated blows that you see coming.
you
Literally.
heard it here, folks. If you're coping with something, grab some blow, and
Yep,
you'll be
cope and
fine.
blow, cope and blow.
Go hit that blow.
But you know what I'm saying? Like that was actually mind-boggling to me because you know how I am when I like get on a word and I'm like, I
Oh,
wonder what
you're a wordy. Oh, you're a wordy for
I
sure.
wonder what it actually right. And then when I saw that, I'm like,
Oh yeah.
whoa. I'm like, so our whole life, people are like, oh, you need coping skills. No, you need coping skills to survive. You don't need coping skills to thrive. You need coping skills when you're trying to control how much the next blow is going to affect you. And you're scanning through that chaos, right? Like, how can I control all these things because they might make their way in?
And there's just a form of coping that always just feels like containment.
It feels like you're
Like
drowning.
you're like trying to contain yourself, because
Yes.
especially when it's like a blow up kind of coping, like you're trying to simmer down. I don't know how to make that make sense, but interesting. Interesting.
Okay, your turn.
Okay.
You're up. Okay.
Fire
So,
away.
what was either a misconception that you had about healing or spirituality? You can pick either one. But once you put it down, it shifted your whole reality.
Um, I think for me, it was always that you could do it wrong. And I don't just mean that there's a right way and a wrong way. I mean that you could go down an avenue where you would be veering off the path in any way. I
Yes.
don't just mean that, oh, a perfectionist standpoint of like, because I was that way, especially in my teenage or like, preteens, very much like I put a lot of self pressure, like a lot of pressure on myself to do it correct. But it wasn't just like the idea of correct as in a structured scale that we all had. It was also my idea of correct. Like it had to show up and show out, or it wasn't worth being done.
Yes.
Like, and I was even so much so that I thrived on a little bit of like chaotic pressure,
Yes.
especially growing up in school. Like,
Yes. No, I was the
don't
same.
get me wrong, like, and I'm gonna say this, that I'm not saying this to toot my own horn, but, like, when I was in school, I was always in honors classes, AP classes, very advanced. You know, you had a lot of work and you had to think fast and smart, right? Like, that was the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Great. It bred a logical person. Like, it bred a logical person. Fantastic. Like, I am from, just generations of big brain people. Like, my family on both sides is it's stacked with smarties. Like, but, like, literally, it's just stacked with smarties, like, on both sides, my mom and my dad. Like, my grandfather, like, was an engineer and ended up making parts on a space shuttle in a time period where it was just completely unheard of, you know what I mean? Like, and there's just so much that goes into that, you know? But then on the other side, like, on my dad's side, my family was crazy smart, just even with their hands, building, crafting, but also financially. Very wicked smart. Could play the stocks like nobody's business. Knew how to gamble, knew how to bet, knew how to make a good deal. Like, always reading statistics. Like, there's just always that kind of a knowledge base. But I was always the person who, even in school, would put so much pressure on myself that I would purposely procrastinate so that I could feel a lot of pressure so that I could achieve the best out of myself. And I remember that being something that hit me in my high school years, especially like junior, senior year, is when that finally, like, that light bulb clicked for me of being like, oh, this is really easy. And when something's easy, I don't want to do it because it's not fun anymore, because there's no challenge for me mentally.
The challenge accepted is like not there.
So
Like,
then I have to wait till the 12th hour, literally 24 hours before a paper was due, a project was due, and I would have to all night it and get
stacking
it
the deck
done.
against you. It's like, let me
Exactly.
see
Like,
what I'm made
I
of.
would literally have to stay up, with palms sweaty, knees weak, mom spaghetti. Like, literally sit there nervous, being like, I don't think I'm gonna finish this paper by 7 a.m. And I would have to stay up all night. But that was like my own source of like a little bit of chaos. I didn't realize it at the time. But it was just a source of being able to put so much pressure on myself because I thought to myself that I worked best under pressure. So the whole thing with that, it had to be perfect. Sometimes healing was just too easy. I know it sounds weird, but sometimes it was just too
No,
easy.
but it doesn't
Then
because we
I'm
do
like,
it all the
"Oh,
time.
it doesn't actually bother me anymore." And then, like, out the window it went, and it just wasn't like that. And then sometimes I would tell myself that, "Oh, well, what if I did it wrong? Then there were always gonna be some kind of crazy consequences." Because I grew up Roman Catholic, so it was very much a structured system of,
Yes.
like, not so much what you believed, but what you had to do in order to get reprieve from things, and it was very much ritualistic in the tradition of it all, you know? Even just going to church, the priest would say something and you had 3 sentences you had to say back. Like, it's very structured in that way. So when I was introduced into healing and there was no structure, my brain was like, "Time the fuck out. I don't wanna do it. I don't wanna do it." Not only did it feel uncomfortable healing because I was so logical, getting into my feelings, like, feelings used to make me skeeved. Like, if I could crawl out of my skin and jump, like, somewhere else besides where I had to be to heal, oh, I would do it. I would do it in a heartbeat. I remember somebody was like, "How do you feel?" And I'm like, "Ugh, no, I'm good. No, I don't wanna tell you how I feel. I feel like that's so stupid." Like, to me, it was very like, "But I'm functioning, so why do my feelings matter?" Like, I know that sounds weird now where we are, but I remember having all of that, and even listening to people. Like, I was in a long-term relationship for a while, like 6 years. And when you're in a relationship, no matter what it is, for that long period of time, you do a lot of blending of family. So
Yes.
I spent a lot of time around other people's family. Now, my family, we're big, we're loud, we bust each other's balls.
Yes.
Like, I'll get yelled at more often in a loving manner than we'll sit down and have a heart to heart.
Yes.
So it's not as common for me, especially in my upbringing. But at the time, his parents, they would have like these round table, like, family meetings where they would sit down and, like, their parents, their parents would be like, "All right, what's going on with you? Something's wrong." And then it would be like, "Oh, okay, waterworks." Like, and like not for me, but like for him, and they would just have these really big heart to hearts. And I guess it was something that like his grandma did that then his father, who was obviously the son of his grandmother, like it was like built into his DNA the same way telling people like, busting people's balls is built into my DNA. So
And
it
if
was
that's what
very
you're telling me
unnerving.
too, I'm over here like, we have discussions. Like
It
I'm
was
over
very
here
unnerving. Like, I'm telling you, when I'm sitting there and then they're,
like,
like, having
really
intense heart-to-hearts, and then they, like, both turn and look at me, and I'm like, "Oh, no, 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 that's not for
no,
me."
no.
Um, and I just remember them always, like, especially his dad, like, always used to be like, "Well, you're part of this family, so, like, let's go, like, blah, blah, blah," and I'm literally just remember being like, "I'm good, like, I'm just not really in emotions like this kind of person." And it was just such a, like, I think that's why I'm
Like
good.
a laughing bee. Like, so they wanted to see you. Hey, they not only wanted to see you and hear you and all this, and you're like, let me run. You're like, but this
It's the
is enough
truth, it's
for
the
me.
truth.
What
It's
is
so the truth. It's so the truth, and I just remember being like, "Ugh." But and just coming from all of that, it was really the idea that if I tried to do something and I failed because I did it wrong, then I would do more damage than if I didn't try it at all. And
yes,
sometimes I was so wicked smart that sometimes I would tell myself that that's actually, like, there's evidence to that. So, like, the whole, like, and I'm telling you, like, it's true. Like, I remember before I, like, actually read the Bible again out of, like, CCD or Catholicism when I was growing
yeah,
up, like, early years. As an adult, when I read it again, it didn't hit me the way that it hit me when I was younger. But when I was younger, I read it and I would sometimes, like, use that philosophy to, like, almost, I don't know, like, co-sign my bullshit. You know what I mean?
oh yeah,
So there was some kind of part that I remember being like, oh, like, if you have an awareness of God but you turn from him, you sinned. But if you had no knowledge of God, then you don't sin because he can't blame you if you don't have knowledge of it. So sometimes I would be like, oh God, like, it's not my it's not my problem because I don't have the knowledge to heal. So if I don't do it, like, I'm not guilty of it. Like, I'm telling you, like, sometimes I would have these really wicked ways of, like, making the shoe fit for fucked up situations like
mhm,
that. But and it also, I think, was part of the fact that people who I first were introduced to in spirituality were toxic because I didn't know no better. Were
no,
toxic. And they definitely held a very, well, at least one of them held a very, it's this way or the highway. And if it's
yes,
either right or it's dead wrong. And if it's dead wrong, the consequences were like, you lost your soul. Like, it was always something just
yes,
monstrous. So, I think it was just kind of that of being like there's a wrong way, and
yes,
it's better to just not do it than to do it and do it completely wrong and get off your divine path, your spiritual path, and then what if you live a life and you don't get to do what you were supposed to be? It was some bullshit like that. Um, so I think that one's it for me. It was just the right and wrong of it. Um, but now that I know what I know and now that I've done so much of my own healing, there's no wrong way to heal. And I just think that that's really important. So some people need to go, like you've said in other podcasts, like, go hit a tree with a baseball bat.
yep,
And some people need to cry about it. And some people need to be heard. And some people like their story and they need to be shut down and they need to stop telling their story. And I think that everybody has a different angle to healing. And I think that honestly, we all do the same 5 or 6 stages of healing, just in different quantities. So if you've shut down your healing most of your life, you need to talk about it. Like, you need to talk about it for a second until it starts to hinder you. Then once you
yeah,
talking about it starts to make you stagnant, we need to stop talking about it. Now it's done because now it's outlasted its purpose,
dude,
and then you need to go on the, I'm going to set it aside and I can keep going. And I
yeah,
just think that's really important.
yeah,
Um so yeah, so I don't know. So for me, that's just it. It's just the idea that there's no wrong way to heal. Um and then it's so much easier than people make it out to be. especially with the whole, you're going to lose your soul and fractals and
Yep.
all the craziness that you'll hear just to get some money,
Yeah.
is wild. But, a lot of it for me that I realize it's just a different avenue for you to convince yourself that you're not broken
Yes.
and that you never were, and that you can let down the pieces of you that think that you're broken. And like you talked about, are forcing you to believe to your core that you need to cope or hide something, hence your
Yes.
shadow. And I just think that that's the biggest takeaway for me, um, is that there's no right and there's no wrong way to heal. If you're attempting it, air quotes, or doing it, then that's good enough. Um, that's so funny because my next question has to do with healing too. So I love how that happened accidentally. Um, right? The universe, man. How did you know when to stop healing and to start living?
Ooh, I love that one. I think for me personally, I'll go backwards to go forwards. I think for me personally, I had to realize that healing was a lens. It wasn't really like a process or a destination or a purpose. And when I
Yeah.
say that, it's because like I spent a lot, I think, and a lot of people can relate to this. I spent a lot of years going to therapy and I enjoyed it. Like, I mean, as weird as that sounds, I actually enjoyed it because I actually found a really good therapist, right? And I could just go in there. I could be myself, no mask. I could cry, and I felt safe. That was the difference. I felt safe every time. Like, I had never felt that way my entire life. And then at one point, we got to this point in therapy, and she's like, "Well, I'm gonna take a job somewhere else," and da da da. She was moving, and I'm like, "Oh, congratulations."
You're like, so you're breaking up with me? Single
Yeah,
pimped here?
hold on. But I'm gonna tie this into kind of what I said before, like about these coping skills, right? And she goes, but it's okay. And she goes, because, everything kind of, how we always says where there's an end, there's a beginning, and the beginning, there's, she goes, you know, she goes, it's a good stopping. For, and I'm like, okay, I'm listening. And she's like, you have the coping skills to like, to go, to do this. You don't need to come here. And I said, okay, but like, that's not a compliment, ma'am. And that's what I said. I was like, that's not a compliment. I go, so you're basically telling me I have all the tools that I need to go back out and continue to be the strong one. The strong one who can take whatever life throws at me. I can go back in the lion's den. You have equipped me now. Like, we're good. Right? I'm like, this is not a compliment. And I said, you're missing the point. I've been equipped. And that's what I told her. I've been equipped. I've been dealing with the shit show the entire time I come here. I'm here for me. This is me liking my time with me, right? So, anyways, things come to an end. And then I'm like, okay, now what? Right? And then
Oh yeah.
I kind of like bridged into the like, okay, so like, what's spirituality? What's right? But then it's like, again, just like when things don't sit right with you, it became a project. And that's how I want to say that, like a project. Like, you need to do these things. You need to check these boxes. Like, if you don't do this, you can't have this. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was just this, I don't know. It's always just a yuck for me. But I'm like, okay, so now I'm back to where I started under the guise of a new name and a guise of a new this. But all I'm doing is I'm chasing my past. I am resurrecting things that have already happened. I'm resurrecting things. And this was the weird part for me personally. I was resurrecting things that, for the most part, now there's a few things not so much, but for the most part, I was truly over it. Like you just said, like, I wasn't mad anymore. I didn't feel that way. It wasn't triggering a response. Like, it was just a very casual conversation. Like, yeah, this happened. Yeah, I did that. Yeah, whatever. Like, but it wasn't in the sense of I'm guilting myself or judging myself. It just happened. Like, I'm over it. I'm literally over it. I put it down. But I realized when you get to working with certain people, like I said in the beginning, I worked with people that it was very, you have to do A to get to D. And if you don't, like you said, something negative is going to happen to you if you don't do it this way. If you deviate from the plan or the box or the whatever they're trying to say you need to do. All the while, I'm already standing outside the plan, the box, the process, the all of it. And I'm like, okay, I'm not broken. I'm always whole. I'm always, you know what I mean? Like all these things.
Oh
I
yeah.
remember, you know, you and I cross paths, and at one point you're like, yeah, connections are birthright, B. Like, da 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 da. And, but like all of those like started to shape that lens again, where it's like that lens of healing where you're broken. You need to fix yourself to be whole. When it's like, it's that lens to show you that you were already whole. It's to show you the parts of you that have always existed that come out as your triggers, as your reactions, as your shadow, as your whatever you want to call it, right? Whatever aspect of your energy that is already whole is revealing itself to you. I didn't need to be a project. And the more I made myself a project, the less I lived. The more it was, I have to focus on this to do. I'm not living. I'm not being. I wasn't, you know, and I want to say achieving something, right? So if I'm living and I'm being and I'm manifesting and I'm doing all these things I'm supposed to do, why is none of it happening? That
Yeah.
was the weird thing for me in my brain where I'm like, so I'm doing all the things. I'm doing all the things that I'm told I'm supposed to do, right? To achieve what it is I say I want to achieve. I want to be healed. I want to be this. I want, you know, whatever. And none of it is happening. And I can't figure out why it's not happening because I'm genuinely investing in myself in ways I
Right.
never invested in myself before. I'm taking the time to really work on me and prioritize myself, only to realize I was still looking at myself as something that needs saved, something that needs fixed, something that, you know, I needed to be accepted or this or that. And all of those things actually keep you from living. And I think when I say living, it's more being. I never knew how to
Right.
just I never knew how to just sit. I never knew, honestly, like this can sound wild. I never knew how to just say no. And not no as in words, no as in like actions. And you know this, you personally know this. Like, I didn't actually realize that, like, I didn't have to tell people, like, please stop calling me right now. Please stop texting me right now. I didn't realize that, like, no and being and living was like, no, I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing without having to pause to tell someone no. Me not focusing here or giving my attention here or being at a beck and call. That's the way I want to say that. Being at a beck and call, because my is really bad about that. I'm the fixer, so like answer your phone when we call, answer the door when we knock, you know, all those things. It was like I actually didn't know how to just be and realize I didn't have to stop what I was doing right now in this moment to accommodate something else. Because
Yeah.
healing, like, oh, well, I have to face this head on. I have to boundary today. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's
Yeah.
why, like, because in healing, what is it? You have to have boundaries and you have to tell everybody what your boundaries are. No, you don't, because your boundaries are yours. And when you're being, you are your boundary. When you're living, you are that. You're not stopping what you're doing to explain yourself through a boundary, through a text, through a phone call, through a conversation. You're continuing to live. But I had to put that whole lens down or shatter it, break it, whatever you want to call it, and say, this is not what this is meant to be. If you know what I'm saying, if everything is
Yeah.
right now, what are we doing? Who are, and like I said, I actually had to ask myself, like, who are you if you're not healing? Who are you? Do you know? Because if your identity is healing and your wounds and your old stories and your this, guess what? You're never going to step into what you claim you're doing. If you, I mean, like, unpopular opinion, like, people are probably not gonna like that I said that. You are never going to step in, shift, jump your timeline. I don't care what you call it. If you are going to continue to identify with your wounds and that you need to achieve some kind of a process in order to step into the next version or merge with your higher self or let some other higher frequency vibration of yourself come out, right? If you think you have to achieve something, you're going to continue to play those things over and over again, which is what you're living. You're reliving it over and over and over again. And at what point do you just get tired of that? And that's what I think it was for me. I just got tired. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? I don't have to keep rehashing this. How do you go to therapy for like 3 years and literally put it down, right? Only to go, we're healing now. What the fuck
And
was I
pick it
doing?
back up. And pick it back up. And
And pick it back up
pick it
because
back
somebody
up.
gives you a new lens and goes, now it's shadow work, right? And like, I don't disagree that some, like, you know what I mean, methods in therapy are completely different from shadow work, right? Some of
Yeah.
them
Well,
overlap depending the ways you do them. I know the way we do it is completely, I would say, my experience, not the same. But that was the wild thing to me. I'm like, I already put this down. Why the fuck am I picking it back up again? Like, why are we putting the things back in the suitcase after we just spent all this time unpacking it and we're actually good? And like our behavior, our actions, our life actually reflects that we put this down. Yet we're bringing it back again. And the thing is, I had to ask myself, who told me it has to be like this? And why did I so readily pick it back up? Why did I so easily pick that back up? That's a reflection of me. And I think it's in that moment that I'm like, so I have a choice. I can either unpack what I already unpacked, because at this point we're just on a hamster wheel. And I can focus on what being looks like, because guess what? We haven't done that before. Or I can continue to do what I know how to do, which is dissect and pick myself apart. And that's where it just kind of stopped. You're always going to have things that arise that elicit a response, a memory, a feeling, a this, a that. It doesn't mean you need to go camp out there from the past. It's just an awareness. Because at what point do you just put that down? At what point are you tired of reading that story? It's not about shame. I just don't want to talk about it anymore. I don't need to. What purpose does it serve? So for me, it was more like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
You're like, next. Like, next. We could stop at this. Yeah, no, but that's so true, though. Now, a word from our sponsors. If you are looking for a one-stop shop for all things spiritual, check out the website, www.childofbalance.com. We opened up a Get 5, Give 5 program, and it's all for referring friends and family. We know you guys do it. We want to say thank you because we are always seeing you send your trusted people our way. So visit the website and figure out how you can not only get $5 for doing it, but give $5 to your bestie. Visit www.childofbalance.com. There's no end date. So if you want a one-stop shop for private spaces, spiritual guidance and assistance, mediumship, mentorship, private readings, shadow work assistance, it's all there. If you are looking for a free tree of knowledge where you can learn esoteric wisdoms, breath work, you can learn about yourself, cultures, spiritual hygiene, spiritual practices, spiritual traditions, and you can just learn about almost anything under the sun spiritual for 100% free, check out the website. And you should become a member. If you're not already a member, www.childofbalance.com. It's 100% free. It'll never cost you money. We would never charge you money. The website is about assistance and community. Take advantage of it, fam. It's a great place to go to unlock your spiritual potential. www.childofbalance.com.
Okay, next question. Because you're so energy based, and I know that we see people. Well, you are, and we've had lots of our own like side conversations about this. But we see so many people get stuck in like fear based mentalities or whatever when it comes to energy, right? So my question for you is, do you believe, or do you know? You can take that either belief, knowing, I don't care. Because Miss Energy, I feel like it's your knowing, so I don't want to just call it a belief.
Are you good?
But for lack of a better word, do you believe that energy has a moral compass? Like, do you believe it has a moral compass? Or do you believe that it's like our humanness that kind of seeks to separate it and categorize it into like good, evil, right, wrong, this, that? Or is energy neutral?
So I'll tell you the visual I got with that was wild. Um, that's a good question. So energy for me is manipulative. Um, and I don't know if other people feel that way, but I think energy is manipulative and it's manipulative manipulable
Malleable.
manipulative yeah,
Malleable.
manipulable, I don't know, malleable, you sure. Like
Pop
you
it out of me.
can like it can manipulate you and you can manipulate it. And I think that that's just where I sit with it.
Yeah,
Um it's a morpher to me. It is what it is, but it can also be a chameleon. Like we can't say that we can transmute energy and we can change its shape and its form and its function and then say that energy has to only be one thing. And I feel like we can do a lot with energy. So when it comes to is it inherently good or inherently bad or morally right or morally evil? I think it's all in the wielder, um,
that was going
and
to be
how
my
they
next
choose to
layered
wield
question.
it.
Was do you believe or do you know? I'm going to that it's more the filter in which one filters the energy through. They then assign it meaning.
I do because I can take something very dense and bring it up to a certain degree. I do think there are some limits there that, depending on what you have to deal with, if you're just using your energy, if you're using elemental energy, if you're going into either Reiki energy, universal energy,
Yeah,
cosmic energy. I think depending on what you're using to facilitate or help you or aid you, that could change some things. Um, but other than that, like I just think that it depends on how you choose to use it because um, it's energy is so it's such a difficult thing, but so simple in the same regard. Um, I think it's difficult because sometimes people don't realize how much energy is actually affecting them or infecting them in the moment until they take a step back. Because I think about people in their surroundings and they're surrounded by hateful people, harmful people, people just in their own trenches, and then their environment just breeds and bleeds that type of energy out. And if you're overwhelmed by a large quantity of energy on either side, really, you often succumb to it, so if you're high and you're surrounded by a bunch of lower, sometimes you're lowered. And if
yeah.
you're low and you're surrounded by a bunch of highs, should you choose, you can be risen, in the energy, just solely energy, not risen like, enlightenment. No,
No,
just
correct.
energy, frequency, the how fast it moves,
You'll
how light it
tune
feels, how dense it
into,
feels.
yes, you'll tune into that higher level of energy,
Yeah.
eventually tune into succumb to the lower level. Correct. No, I totally get
Yeah. So when it comes to morals, I think it just depends on the person wielding it and how they choose to use it. So I think it starts with our own base of morals, and I think that that's a human thing. And I don't know how many people believe that, but for me, I think it's a human quality. I think our humanity is so tied, so knitly, woven with our morality, um, that it kind of goes hand in hand. Um, I feel like we are one of the only things on Earth is maybe the way that I want to say that, and I'm using that loosely. Like, so someone goes, "Well, extraterrestrials are here on Earth." I'm not talking about that. Like, I'm just thinking like us and the animals and the
it.
plants,
Right.
and the wildlife and stuff like that. Like, I think we're we have more of a care for morality and ethics and how we treat others because we don't have to be like our majority, especially, first world nations. We have so much of our needs met by our daily existence that we don't need to be in survival. And I'm gonna say survival, not fight or flight, because you can
Correct.
still be in fight or flight, energetically, mentally, in situations we put ourselves in. But I just think that once you take surviving out of the equation, that's when a whole lot more of the moral aspect kind of seeps in. Um, Now, if you go to either impoverished areas or, third world or even lesser, if they're, places where, food, shelter, running water, like all those things are a struggle to obtain, to maintain, um, morality gets a little gray and things look a little like, woo, and things that we may find evil, like, I don't know, mugging somebody, hurting somebody,
Right.
stealing, whatever it is, lying, swindling, like, and things that are harmful or hurtful, they get more appealing because, well, I had to, right? I had no choice. How many times do you heard that from somebody? Just I had no choice,
Right.
Um, and they feel like as though their arms are being twisted, and in that aspect you'd be like, well, that's the lower level of things, and it's like, but it is in an aspect because survival is our basic need, so it's a very dense energy,
Yes.
but I think it's so circumstantial. I don't think that energy um has a set good bad rating. I do think things feel lighter, and I do think things feel denser and heavier. Things move slowly and things move fast. Things move with structure, like a pattern or a prism or a sacred geometry to them, and things move seemingly randomly, or chaotically. But I think it depends on the person. I'm really big on we own our own scale of hard, and
Yes.
I think we own our own scales in general. So when you think about things being good or bad, I might say that, someone's death was a good thing because, they were hurting people, and just think about all the people that were saved now that they, aren't here or something like that. And then the person who was close to the person who passed might be like, oh, well, it's really sad. It's a shame. It's bad that he died, or, whatever. So I think it really just depends on our scale and what we have already established in our foundations of morally right and morally wrong, because that's the lens we're going to view everything through. And I think it's the same with energy. Now, having said that, do I think that there are by nature predominantly denser energies out there? Yes. Do I think there are predominantly lighter energies out there? Yeah. And before anyone goes, oh, like the devil, like, you could take it there if you want to, sure. But I was actually thinking just even more basic, like the elements. You think Earth is a
Yes.
far more denser energy. It moves slower. It's very physical, tangible. Air, very light. It holds,
Yes.
almost no visible quality besides the fact that you see the earth element moving. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's unless you like make something of it, like, it's just when you look at things like that, I do think density, you know, exists. Um, and it can be weighed and measured, so to speak, like the effects of it can be weighed and measured, subtle energy. So I don't think it's negative in that aspect. But I think depending on the lens we choose to view things and how harsh our scale and our rules and our morals and our ethics are, is exactly how harsh and black and white we see the line of density versus light versus good versus evil. So I think we make it what we want it to be, unfortunately. Um, so for me, I think that's where it stands. Um, okay, last question for you. What's one thing you would tell someone just starting that you wish you'd had known or had been told earlier?
I want to piggyback off of what you said earlier because I honestly think it's the same for me, and that's that there's no wrong way to do anything.
Mm,
Like when it comes to investing in you, being you, getting to know you, because let's take it all out of there. Let's take the healing label, the fixing label, the broken, you know what I mean? All of it. Let's take it all out. The only thing you're guaranteed to find more of is yourself, no matter what you do.
Yep.
I wish somebody would have told me that one sentence, that, and you already know the next sentence I'm going to share because I've shared it 1,000 times on 1,000 podcasts. First is, you are only guaranteed to find more of yourself in every single thing that you do, every experience, every relationship, every moment. You are guaranteed to find more of yourself. There is no wrong way to find more of yourself. You may not prefer ways that you find yourself. You may find yourself rock bottom. You
You
may
may not
find
like what you find, but you have
you may
found it.
not like it or prefer it. But at the end of the day, you found more of you. Whether you fell inward, whether you expanded outward, you still found more of you. The second part that I wish somebody would have told me, and they did, and that's why I'm sharing this, I do it all the time because it was life changing for me, has to do with like the things that we replay, the things that we think we have to carry. And when I say that, for me, I was raised in a way where the things that you do have consequences, right? Cause and effect, the law of karma, whatever. Okay? Whatever you want to call it. We can fit it into all the boxes because at some point I could fit them into all the boxes that different people and their beliefs gave me, right? Again, still my own energy, still more of myself, always finding it, right? But I was raised where no matter what you do, right or wrong, right? Like in that kind of scenario, it has consequences, whether you like them or not. And when they're negative consequences, you carry them around like a scarlet letter. You don't get to forget that's your cross to bear, right? That was like ingrained in my mind. Even when I'm 15 years, 20 years, however many years away from, whatever happened, right? Like the incident, I still have to carry that. It's my scarlet letter, right? But no.
Yeah.
Then somebody literally, I was just like having a casual conversation one day, and I'm like, well, and it was like just really stupid, actually. Like not the conversation, but like looking back, I'm like, I was talking about a job, and I was like, oh, but because this happened, it might be on my background or this or that. And they go, you can put that down whenever you're ready. And in my mind, I'm like, what? Like, no, I can't. Like, that's my consequence. Like, it just is what it is. And like I said, not in a shameful way, not in a judgment way, just in a like, this is just how it is, right? Like when you say like your very logical brain, your logical brain goes, no, this is just the way that it works. Like, bitch, you did stupid shit. You played stupid games. You won stupid prizes. And like, just because you're not that person anymore doesn't mean like there's still not an echo or an imprint of that version of you somewhere, right? And then somebody
Right.
says, "No, but you can put that down." And it was in that moment that like that's like truthfully like it collapsed. And I'm like, oh my God, I've made this harder than it ever had to be. Because again, I was viewing everything now through a different lens, right? Now I'm not actually viewing this through the lens of that I was handed to by my parents, that like every action has a consequence you have to carry for a lifetime. Now I'm looking at this through the lens of, if we want to manifest something different, we wanted this and that. And I'm like, and I keep telling myself the same old shit. I keep telling myself subconsciously, this is just the way it is. This is just the way it is. Like you can't outrun it. It's here forever. Not realizing I am placing the obstacle, the blockage, the like whatever you want to call it, directly in my way, directly in my path, directly saying, well, I'm preparing myself for this not to work out because it might not work out. That's just the consequence of my actions. It's not that I'm not qualified. It's not that I'm like not a like I'm really good at what I'm applying for. Like there's no reason I shouldn't get this, right?
Yep.
But let me prepare myself. Let me soften the blow because like consequences, right? But
Yep.
it was in that sentence that you can put that down whenever you're ready. It's that easy, people. Like I hate to say that. It's that easy. You can literally sit with yourself and be like, yeah, it's okay. Like we can put this down now because you're already the proof that you're no longer living in that moment. You are already the proof that you survived it. You are already the proof that it's over. You're in this tug of war with yourself between proving who you're not on one end while already being the proof on the other. And that's the tug
Yep.
of war you're having. You're over here like, but I got to defend. What are you defending? What are you defending? You're already the proof that you're not that person. Yet here you are defending and resurrecting and bringing the shit front and center. So those are the two things I wish people would have told me, because we and our humanness makes it so much more complicated than it actually has to be.
So before we switch, I have one like follow-up question,
Yeah.
and it's really short, so don't feel like it has to be
Oh,
crazy,
no.
but um what's your favorite part now of who you are?
Honestly, my favorite part now is my ability to not give a shit.
That's so
And
true though.
and I know that to like some people they're like, "Okay, bitch." And I'm like, "I don't care." Because when I say this, I lost myself in giving a shit about what everybody thought about. And not how they thought about, how they received
Because
that.
I feel like that's a key though, because I've even noticed that when I say that in private sessions where I'm like, but there's a part of you who sounds like it still cares what people think, and they're like, no, I don't care. And I'm like, okay, but different level. You care how they're going to respond to what you're saying. You still care more about
And
them than about you saying the thing. Yeah.
that's my favorite part. Because and not only that, but in the sense of like I also I don't give a shit as a very blanket statement, because I think it encompasses a lot of things. I don't care what role you try to give me. I don't care what hat you try to put on my head. I am not agreeing to your expectation. And
Yep.
that's my problem. I agreed to your expectation. You didn't make me. I have owned my shit so much that like, and when I say this, I have become unbothered by it. Like, for the most part. For the
Yep.
most. We all have our moments, right? But like 99.9% of the time, I just, and when I feel like something starts to kind of like irk me, and I just say irk now because it's not like one, two, three explosion. It's just like this, right? And I'm like, no, no, no. You didn't agree to that expectation. Just leave it alone, right? That's that example of
Yep.
chaos that you don't need to entertain. Like, you didn't agree to that, so leave it alone. But that's my favorite part, because I like me now. I like myself. And I hated myself for a really long time. I avidly tried to hurt myself, destroy myself, eradicate my existence at other points in time. I like myself. And I actually don't care who likes me. And that's what I said. And not in the sense of, do you like what I say? Did I hurt your feelings? No, no, no. I used to care how you received the
Yep.
words that I said, the way I would sit with you or be there for you. I don't even mean it in a combative way. I don't even mean it in a like, you didn't hear my side of the story. No, no, no. I mean, like, when I drop everything I'm doing to come sit with you, or like this or that, I was still worried about how I was being received. Was I soft enough? Was I this enough? Not just the like, did you hear me when I was roaring? But like,
Right.
soft enough? Did I tone it down enough? Did I, you know what I mean? Did I make myself more digestible today? Like, did I wear the right thing? Did I show up correctly? I don't care. Like, this is me. This is what you're going to get. And I say this being funny. You don't know what you're going to get with me anymore. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, I don't have to pre plan my mask of what I'm going to wear today. And I think the best part for me was to put down the part that, like, I don't have to be the strong one. I don't have to be the glue that holds everything together, because that gave me purpose for a really long time. That gave me purpose. Being the strong one, being the glue, being the this. Well, when you tell yourself that that's your role, or you accept that role, maybe I'll just say accept it. You accept it. You accept a lot of chaos and bullshit and drama that you really don't want. And the second you decide you can put that down, you don't have to do that. And you stop giving a shit. And that's how I said it. You stop giving a shit how you're received.
Yep.
It all changes. And that's what I like myself. And I used to not like myself. So that's probably my favorite part, is not giving a shit in the best of ways.
There's like a no regrets part of that. Not even one letter.
Not even
That just
not
brings a
even
lot
one.
of peace, you know?
And if I'm being honest, my humanness, and I'll say this, like, my humanness still gets a giggle when people are like, "Oh, who is you?" Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, where they
I don't know why
explain,
I just
like,
sounded like Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, who's you? Like Mouska Tools? No, but like, but seriously, like, what?
Skabuska, Mouska.
You know what I mean? Like when you don't respond in the way they're used to receiving you, when you don't respond that way, and they're like, "Whoa, who is you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, hello, nice to meet you." Like, but see that's not. And I said that's not on them. Nobody agreed to their expectations but me, which means I get to remove myself from that agreement anytime I'm ready. Nobody was you know what I mean, proverbially holding a gun to my head saying I had to wear this hat, I had to do this, I have to bend and mold and break in all these ways. I just got comfortable and used to doing that it was uncomfortable to not.
Now, a word from our sponsors. If you are looking for a one-stop shop for all things spiritual, check out the website www.childofbalance.com. For those of you who truly appreciate handmade products, we have a handmade shop. Everything is made to order, blessed, saged, and sent out as quick as possible. We have anything from handmade sounds for meditation to herbal blends like bath teas and dump and go specials to road opener mixes to kits and oils and so much more. For those of you who enjoy taking spiritual classes and courses but maybe can't fit it into your busy schedule, we have self-study courses, and everything can be found in the handmade shop. The website is about assistance and community. Take advantage of it, fam. It's a great place to go to unlock your spiritual potential. www.childofbalance.com.
So,
Yep.
I know that was kind of like a long answer to a short,
No, you're fine. Like, oh my God, you're fine.
which I
Like I
love this
said.
because it all just keeps tying back together. So, like, my last question for you was when did you stop defending who you are? And what was that tipping point for you?
That's so layered. That's so layered. I think I did that in stages. I don't think I did it all
I
at
think it comes
once.
in stages too, but like I do. I think it comes
I
in.
like yeah, I'm like trying to think about that because I think I did that in stages because I want to say that there was always a part of me that has always rubbed everybody wrong. And I mean that, and I think it just comes from my Italian side. I think it really does. Um, the women on my Italian side, and nothing against my other side of the family, but it's a trend in the women on my Italian side. Like my grandmother used to rub people wrong for existing, raising 3 children, like used to rub people wrong for holding random jobs, like even just people she was friends with in the neighborhood would all of a sudden one day just be like with the bird, like, and just like just her existence, her speaking her mind would always rub people wrong. And so she was always one of those like the hell with them. Like that was one of her sayings, like the hell with you. Like and so that was kind of just brought up, and even my aunt, my godmother, she's very much the same way. She was a woman in a man's world all the way with her career. She's a dispatcher. She works as a dispatch in a massive trucking company, and she had to very quickly learn that whole like give no fucks kind
Yeah,
of a thing. And I think I always had that little bit of a beat to my own drum. Like I was very tomboy growing up. I didn't give a shit about what people thought, like ever. I don't care if we go to church and we get dressed up. I'm wearing my jeans that are dragging on the ground because I'm short. And my dad's like, I'm gonna cut your jeans. You're not going to church like that. Like, and then like I'd be like, what? And then all of a sudden it would start a whole thing. I'd be like, oh, we're gonna be late now. Now we have to leave. I guess these are my pants. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I would do so many like outward displays of like a fuck you on
yeah,
purpose. Like, oh, you want to see me wear a dress? Fine, we'll compromise. I'll wear a dress and then I'll wear high tops because fuck you. Like, and it was very much that almost like the opposite. Like, you want me to care? Now I'm gonna not care twice as hard. You know, like, and there was always a little bit of that defiance, especially to authority. Like, the older I get, the more I'm like, oh, I really had like a defiance problem, like with authority. Like, and I thought, like, like, it's
But I
kind of funny.
laugh because no, ma'am, you rub people the wrong way because you wouldn't get in their box. You wouldn't get in their box. Thus, you became the friction. You became the sandpaper because you're already standing outside of their box.
Um,
So then, when you're like, okay, I'll entertain you for a minute, and you're like, you just said, I'll wear your dress with my high tops.
With my high tops, with my bright purple and black high tops, miss me.
And,
But
and
no, but I even had a teacher one time. I remember this so vividly. Like, in school, they used to stand, like, our teachers used to stand outside the door sometimes, depending on the teacher you had. Not all teachers did that, but a couple of them did. And they would stand at the door in the middle of like the 2-minute bell that you were running to class. And we were like in, I don't know, fourth, fifth grade, something wild. Like, we were not in high school yet. And I literally remember that my teacher decided to say something about you when you walked in the door. Like, it was something that they wanted to do. You know, so it was like, "Oh, hi Martha, I love your shirt," or "Oh, nice shoes," or "Like the hairdo," or whatever. Like, some kind of bullshit building you up thing, you know?
yes,
'Cause, like, my generation, I think, was the generation that they were like, "Oh, I wonder if we stop calling people assholes, that maybe they'll feel better about themselves." You know, so that was kinda my generation when they were like, "Oh, let me try something new," you know? The idea
yeah.
of being kind started happening. Like, we kinda overdid it past my generation, but whatever. And then it was like, okay. I remember they got to me and they were like, "You have a problem with authority." And I was like, "What?" I remember being like, "What?" I was flabbergasted. Now, don't get me wrong, like, I loved my teacher, and I'm sure it was just to be a dick because we were, like, tight, but I literally was just like, "Okay." I remember to this day being like, "What is that supposed to mean?" But that's really the thing, so I think that for me, I did that first not caring with school. It happened with school. I only cared about the things that I chose to care about.
Yes.
Um, and I like talked about before, like, I have a big brain. Like, I can outthink myself all the time. I can think myself into a pretzel if I let myself, you know? So used
Oh,
to I used to bitch. I used to I used to outthink the teachers, but I wasn't doing it to be intentionally rude.
no,
Like,
but they're offended
they're
because you
offended
challenged.
because I not only challenged the lecture or the class, but I also disrupted the class. So I got a lot of pushback from teachers, especially in like the history department or like something like that, where they're trying to teach a philosophy or some kind of like way of thinking or why things happen. I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense because I have a question. Like, and they're trying to get you to like understand principles or why things are the way they are. I'm like, but you just said, but that contradicts, but don't you think? Like, and I used to piss people off by accident. And I used to get so much shade from classmates. So I had to really be I think that was the first level of not caring. Like, I remember high school, other girls used to hate me because I was friends with all the boys. And
Oh,
no, I was not slutty. No, I did not sleep around. I made it through my entire high school life. Like, I'm good. Didn't do any of that. Um, but I just had a lot of guy friends because I was kind of jockey and I was tomboy and I didn't mind punching Dylan in the face. I didn't want to get my hairs done, my nail done. I didn't want to go to the mall and shop for a skirt. Nope, but we can definitely play kickball and you better believe I'm beating your ass in badminton. Like, so I had to not care when people bullied me. I know
yeah.
it sounds weird, but I had to not care.
No, I get that.
I wore jeans and a t-shirt and that was my, like, whole life. Like, even the years where I was kind of a little bit preppy and, like, 13, like, that 12, 13, where you start getting boobs, you know what I
The
mean? Like,
the
boobs
ugly thing.
actually, where you start wearing a bra and you're like, "Oh my god." And, like, Hollister was big then and, like, Abercrombie Finch or whatever the hell, like so I had, like, a year or 2 doing that, but I had people who used to think I was lesbian, like, because I wore jeans and having to not care what people thought. I think it started there. That like preteen bullying just at school that I think everybody goes through a certain degree of it, of just kind of being hated by fellow females.
Yeah.
It's wild how much female on female hate we have in this world. But like, I'm like, we have bigger enemies, ladies. But it really
No.
is because they're either jealous because you're smart and they think that you think they're dumb and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Or they're
Or
mad
you sleep with
because
all the
you're
guys and they're like, she's a
and
threat.
yeah, they can't get Tyler's attention. You're like, I only like Tyler ill. Like
Yeah. You're like,
it's just like all of that stuff. So I think from a like a social place, it started there. Um from a workspace, it didn't start until like after college. I think when I was working like what I would consider my first professional job in my degree, right? Like, because I double majored, so I have a bachelor's degree for anybody listening. Boop, boop. I have a bachelor's of science. Um, 4 years of my life I'll never get back, and I learned a lot in the 4 years in high school, a lot, or 4 years of college, a lot of tears. But we did it, and that was the first job that I had to really truly double down on not caring because I've always been that pushback. I'm gonna say what I have to say, but I'm also like the person who's gonna come with solutions to problems, you
yeah.
know? But when somebody doesn't want to recognize or like a what do you call it, like an establishment or
Yeah.
like a management chain or a
Yeah.
company or an enterprise doesn't want to admit that the problems exist, the person coming with the solutions to the problems that shouldn't exist is the problem itself. Is the problem itself. When the company does not want to admit that there is a problem here, and you're like, I have a solution to that problem, the company's like, no, the fuck you don't. And you become the problem, you become the target because you're like, I just want to fix the experience here. And so I had a lot of that, and that really pushed me to not care as much. So then I got almost into the phase of being like, this is my job responsibilities and I don't care. I'm only doing this. Like, I'm not going to go above and beyond if we haven't gotten it. If the whole entire company hasn't gotten raises in 6 years, I'm not going above and beyond. If we're at a freeze and you're like leeching money and leveraging money and all this shit, like, I'm not going above and beyond. I did that for the first couple of years and it just got me nowhere. I cared too much about what my boss thought about me and I like almost burnt myself out, so it was like a lot of that. um and I think after I really stopped caring about the career aspect of it, because that was always taught as a safety net for me.
Yes.
Like, um my dad is, um how do I say that, he's a hands-on laborer. Like, and he did go to school for that, but he went to trade school. That's the word. He went to trade school. My mom was a teacher and she went to college, right? Like, so it was always kind of split, right? Growing up, like, my dad didn't really care what we did as long as we liked what we were doing and we did something. My mom was the one who really pushed for college. Like, you need to do something, right? You need to get a degree, you need to do something. And so I went to college because I had to. In my mind, even though we never really had like I think it's one of those silent pressures. And I think
Yeah.
everyone will understand a silent family pressure to
Yes.
like have your life figured out and know what you want to do. I think since I was like 12, people were asking me what I wanted to be when I grew up. And then when I was 5, what do you want to be? What do you want to be? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And then the second I got to high school, it was like, you need to figure it out. You need to figure it out. Like, but it's a lot. Like, I remember being like, oh, I don't know. I don't really care. Um,
No, my mom was like that.
so it was just kind of one of those things where, you know, it was kind of expected to be like well, in order to live a happy, healthy life, you need to have stability. In order to have stability in this world, you need to make money. So what are you going to do that's going to make money? You know? And it was kind of always that. So I think once I got over that kind of like healing hurdle of being like, oh, but I don't need to have this like crazy career that is just killing it on money or just doing all these crazy things. Like, and believe me, my career was not a super big moneymaker when I started because I started right out of college. Um, but it was just one of those things that once that pivot happened, I changed everything. I quit my job in like a weekend. I was like, here you go. I made a decision over lunch break. wrote my resignation letter in the middle of a lunch break, and then like handed it in the next like 2 days. 2 weeks later, was like, peace out, and started doing this. You know what I mean? And that changed everything. The second I did that, that changed my whole outlook on things. But I think it was still the next like 6 months. I'm gonna call it 6 months to where I actually did the final not giving a fuck. Because I used to be a little bit hesitant, same thing that you kind of talked about. I kind of was always a little bit hesitant to tell people, not only that I was a medium and talk to dead people, because people either receive that well or they don't, you know, and that was always my fear, is being like, someone's gonna think I'm crazy, they're gonna think I'm the devil Bobby or something weird, right? Like, so I think that was always like a self-conscious thing. Um, and then the idea of like having to explain how you're living. Like, well, what do you do for a living? Like, being single and people are like, what do you do for a living? And you're like, this is where I'm gonna lose you. So me, like when you're in the dating life, people are like, so what do you do for a living? I'm
I
like,
remember this pivot. Like I know when you had this pivot. I do. And I literally remember when you're like, how do you even answer? And I'm like, you can weed it out really fast if you just answer it honestly. Like we're
I
not
know, but dude, that was it for me.
like we don't sugarcoat shit anywhere else. Why are you sugarcoating it with anybody else? Like
That was it for me. And I started doing it almost to the excess, to where somebody would be like, hi. And I'm like, I'm a psychic medium. I talk to dead people. I own a spiritual business. That's the craziest thing I ever done. My favorite color is blue. What else you want to know? Like, because I just got to the point where I was like, I'm like, shove it in your face, because it's something I can't change about me. I can't change the fact that I'm always going to have Edna knocking on my door being like, by the way, like, and if you're in a relationship with me, chances are, because it's just the nature of how it happens, at some point your dead person is going to show up. I can't stop. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things that, because I deeply have accepted that about myself, the next step was like, okay, now I need to broadcast it in some sort of way. Like, I need to tell somebody at some point. So I think that was my final like transition. The final piece was not hesitating about explaining my abilities, what I do, and what I love to do. So the fact that people were like, well, what do you do? I own a spiritual business. And I used to try to skirt around
I know
what that meant. Like, I own a spiritual business. Some people would be like, oh, okay, cool. And then be like, what does that mean? And I'd be like, of course, you gotta ask that. Like, and then you start hating people who are thinkers like you, and you're like, stop thinking, damn it. Like even family members, like, it's just funny. Like, it's not even just people you met, like even family members, like, why did you quit, working here to do what? And I'm like, oh. So like, and it's funny because then you have to decide, are you gonna let them ride with a misconception, or are you gonna correct the misconception? When you're like, oh, people are like, oh, so you kind of do therapy. No, don't be saying that. I'm not a licensed therapist. Nope, nope, nope. Back that up. So now you got to explain what shadow work is. Now you got to explain what the context of your spiritual business are, right? So I just had to I got comfortable by doing. But then there was just that piece where I was like, you know what? But it's me though. Like, I think that was the last part of my authenticity, to be really honest, is like, but it's me though. So like, I don't hide me ever. And should you run across me on social media or whatever, I'm not ashamed of me.
Yeah.
So it was the last little like mental piece of being like, but I shouldn't be ashamed to tell you who I am, what I do, especially because I love doing it. So
Yes.
for me, it happened in stages. And that was the final stage, was about 6 months ago. Not 6 months ago, 6 months into when we started our business. So what, about a year and a half ish ago,
Yeah.
I think was the final like no fucks given.
Yes.
But it happened so much in stages. It
Yes.
wasn't even funny, because I think it just comes like that snowball. Like
Well,
that.
echoes because you've done it for so long. It echoes. Like that's the only way. That's why I always
Right.
think of it in stages, because it's like, okay, you just get an opportunity, and it's like you just said, like somebody will ask you what you do. It's just an opportunity to be yourself, and then the
Yep.
echo of watering that down, soften it a little bit so it's received well, pops back up. And you're not even like, when I say, you're not even really like, quote unquote, fighting the person asking the question. You're fighting the echo of yourself. That's it.
Well, and it's so funny because I think it was you that I told. It was either you or, like, one other person, but I'm pretty sure it was you at some point when I was like, "I don't know why I didn't do it sooner,"
Yes,
because
yes.
I had anticipated everybody taking it so badly. Like, "Oh my god, you're crazy. You must have schizophrenia. Oh my god, the devil." Like, I don't know what I thought, but then to find out that not only is everybody, especially when it comes to family, super chill about it. You mean I coulda did this when I was 5? You mean
Right.
I coulda did this when I was 12? When I was 14, I could have did this. Like, and then on top of it, to find out that it's in our lineage, because I think that's always a cool part. Like,
So I'm like,
you're
I mean,
not
it's
the
funny
first,
because
you're like the
you did
12th, you know?
all these other things when really we could have just like faced our fear, 15 years ago.
Oh.
And like, I mean, I
Yeah, but I do say I definitely had to go through the steps of convincing myself I wasn't crazy.
yeah,
But, like, okay. So it was just one of those things where it was just I remember being like, in hindsight, I'm always saying, like, I should have done this sooner. Because I think the family's the hardest part, even though it's the easiest part. Because I can tell any
where it's hard for you. Me, I'm like, I was literally, and I'm not owning this, but at a point in time, I'm the family disappointment. I'm the one who fucks everything up. Like, I've already embarrassed everybody, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, so I'm like, this can't even hold a candle to the other shit I've
That's
done.
so funny though, because it's like you're coming from the aspect of like, what do I have to lose? I'm coming from the aspect of being like, but I have carefully crafted my
Yes.
image so nicely. I am the A-roll honor student, AP kid who graduated high school with honors, who graduated college summa cum laude over a 4 point, like GPA, like I'm the person who's like been excelling everywhere and then goes, by the way, we're going like, and I was so worried. I
You're
think that
going
people were gonna be
rogue
like,
over
"Oh my
here.
god, she's gone crazy," or "Oh, she's got hit her hippie era," or whatever. You know what I mean? Of being like, "How did my child go from this and then down here?" Like, I was so worried about that shift of being like, "So I lied to everybody my whole existence." Like, you know what I mean? So to me, it was just always kind of that I'm gonna disrupt who you think I am. Like, I'm gonna ruin that illusion for you.
Yes.
So I've
I
always been very
found
conscious,
who I convinced everybody I was,
but
and
that's it
finally
though. I've
became
always been so conscious about how others perceive me as far as family goes. Like,
yes.
so for me, it was like, I can tell any stranger my deepest, darkest secret. I'm never gonna see that bitch again. Like, that is literally the way my logical brain works. I can tell the bus driver, hey, I talked to dead people. Your uncle's here, by the way. He says he hates your scarf. Okay, I'll see you later. Like, and not give two shits. Like, but then I run into my family and I'm like, ooh, oh, I gotta tell you something. Oh, your mom's here, like, and it's like one of those things where I'm like, and then like it was always like that fear in the beginning of like, what if they ask me a question? What if they ask me how I know that? So I used to be like, well, especially like in the beginning, late teens, or even when I was 14. Um, Sometimes I would say things and people wouldn't believe me, but they would just okay it to death. Okay, okay, okay. Like, and I'll tell you what, spirit comes in clutch because my grandfather did scare the shit out of my mom one time by touching her on the shoulder when I tried to tell her that he was in my room and she didn't believe me, but she was just like, okay, okay, that's so nice, honey. And then she went to go put clothes in my closet and he touched her on the shoulder. She ran out through the clothes of my bed and never went in my room for like 2 months straight. Um, so I thought that was hysterical. Um,
Oh my god, that's so
but
funny.
it's just one of those things where it was more the idea of people were like, well, how'd you do that? So I used to have like this little out because I figured out, and I tell people to do this if they're not ready or if they fear that somebody won't receive something, but they feel the urge to tell them something, especially when they're on that beginning. I'm like, do a little like white lie. And people are like, oh, I can't lie. I'm like, just shut your face for a second. Do a white lie. So if you're talking to a dead person or your intuition comes up and you're like, oh, no, just tell people you had a dream. I don't know why people are so receptive to I had a dream about Nana
Maybe
or about
they
like
have to engage
grandma
with because most people have had a dream at some point. So
and they all believe their dreams. How many people believe and love their dreams and they trust their dreams even if it's a nightmare? People
so
have vivid
they
memory and they're like
resonate with them.
connected to it.
You're meeting
It's-
them where they are. That's what you're doing. You're meeting
But
them where
exactly. And it's like, as long as you're getting whatever you feel like you need to get across, what does it matter? Because the point isn't about how you got it. It's
correct.
about that you got it, because it's not about you as the messenger.
Yeah.
It's about the message. So
Not
to
who
me, it was like, oh, I had a dream about your grandfather, or, oh, I had a dream about your dad, or, and I did that for a long part of my life until I was like, I actually don't care how you know how I got this. So yeah, I was, gardening, and, your father whispered in my ear, sorry. Like, or I got all these images when I was doing this, my bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just started like, and people just really, they didn't care. They actually found it interesting. Now, some
Yeah.
people might hate you for it, and that's their loss. But
That's fine.
for me, it was just one of those things, like, there was like a little baby step of being like, oh, I have a dream. So then people would be like, I would have my aunts and my uncles sometimes, like, when I would see them for gatherings, or sometimes they would call me and be like, "Oh, did you have a dream, like, about you, about grandma, or about grandpa, or about this or that?" And I'm like, no, should I have?" Like, but I know what they mean. Like, have you heard from them? Because, and then they usually feel that they can share a story with me. You know what I mean? So then it quickly became almost a bonding thing. So the less I cared about how I was perceived, and what I was saying or doing, or even the message I was sharing, it just got better. It
Opened up
really just got better.
It opened up connections.
Go in the craziest of ways. Yeah. 1,000%. So if anybody's listening to this podcast, I would say, if you're going to take away anything, take away the fact that the world will keep spinning. Life will go on despite how somebody feels about you, and you gonna be just fine by temporarily looking the fool. And I
Yep.
just feel like that's super important, because once you get over that hurdle of that nothing actually changes, even when I think I've made a complete fool of myself, you'll be surprised what you're willing to do. I have done some crazy things in probably the reality of normalcy, but they made me feel better, so they're not crazy. They
No.
made me feel better. And I have zero regrets for how I live my life. And I do what I please. And what I please is what I can live with. And that's something that Keys is always like harping on, and I love it, is the do what you can live with, So I hope that this helps some of the people listening. And next week, we're going to do one more question answer story time.
Yes.
So join us, because I really enjoyed this. I don't know about you, Keys, but I really enjoyed this.
I love this. This was great.
I'll see you guys later.
Bye.
All right. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Spiritual Roundtable with myself, Child of Balance, and Miss Keys of Wisdom 369. And we hope to see you next week for another seat at the roundtable. For anyone else interested in other social medias, the Free Tree of Knowledge, private services, local events, and much more, check out our website, www.childofbalance.com. Until next time, please remember, you are to feel your way through everything. Do not stop, do not make yourself smaller, and always continue to be unapologetically and authentically you, because the world needs more of that.